Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Earlier this year, Indiana Lieutenant Governor Beckwith went public and said, you know, Muslim churches that want to sound their calls to worship 5 times a day shouldn't be allowed to do it. And, of course, that created a huge uproar in certain communities who are now threatening legal action. But I want you to think about something that's going on in America, because America, we may have a problem, and other countries are seeing it, and they're responding also. The problem is we are being infiltrated from the inside out. Why? Well, here's what's happening. Take a look at New York. Look at their mayor. New York mayor, well, he is now publicly saying that it's time for America to embrace the Muslim philosophy, the Muslim importation. More and more people in this country are going to the Muslim concept. And frankly, imams around the United States, in universities, in churches, are all saying, we're going to attack America. We've waited a long time. We've waited centuries. It didn't work a long time ago when we had war, but we could infiltrate through the political system. And New York, yes, has gone, well, Muslim. Ask anybody in New York how they feel. Recently, involving the World Soccer Championship, the FIFA Championship in New York, they published a guide for people coming into the community from other countries to take a look at the various enclaves in New York. And they left certain enclaves out, the Jewish enclave, the Italian enclave, the Irish enclave. But they made a point of putting in the Palestinian enclave, in particular in New York. You take a look at all the elections happening, 125 seats were up for people who, some of whom were Muslim. They won 85 of those seats. So you go after America from the inside out? Well, let me tell you something I have seen personally. Back in 2015, I lived in Dearborn, Michigan. And I could tell you back then, Dearborn was becoming a Muslim community. You drive down the streets, the signs of the businesses, the overhead signs, the big neon signs, were all in Arabic. I got to wondering, what the heck is this all about? You go talk to people, and they were speaking to you in a language you didn't understand. We were at a store one time, and a woman comes up to me in a full burqa, starts talking to me. I don't know what the heck she said. That's what I saw in Dearborn 12 years ago. Today, Dearborn has turned into a radical Muslim. Now, there's 2 factions of the Muslim religion. Understand that. There's the Sunni, which is about 85–90% of all the people who are Muslim in the world are Sunni Muslim. But there's the Shiite Muslim. And they are the radical Islamic Muslims. You wonder what's going on in Iran? Shia, radical Muslims. This is happening all over. In America, it's starting to happen. Go up to Dearborn, Michigan if you don't believe me. I've seen it myself. And there's communities. There's a community down in Texas, a gated community with their own police force. It's a Muslim community only available for Muslims. You think you could get away with that with any other community, saying, oh, it's just for white people? Not in this country. You couldn't do that. Now, Lieutenant Governor Beckwith says, nope, shouldn't be allowed to chime their calls to prayer 5 times a day. Don't know whether that's legal or not. Let's be honest. Churches ring their bells. They do it on Sundays. Do they do it 5 times a day? I don't think so. But the problem we're having is, whether we like it or not, there's something going on. Countries in Europe are saying, hey, this is bad. We got to stop this. They're closing down mosques. They're saying, hey, not in our country, it's overflowing our country. And here's something even bigger to think about. The country of England. You know the #1 name of children born in England? #1 is Muhammad. The country of England's being overrun. And the people in England said, hey, this has got to quit. You know, everybody has their own country, everybody has their own thing, but invading another country and saying, hey, we're going to take over your country, that's happening. Because that's in the particular Quran for the particular sect, the Shia sect, believe this is what they should do. They should do whatever it takes. And if you don't acquiesce to their religion, they can kill you. They can take you as a slave. Some of these imams are saying things about women and rape. They should do that? Sorry. That doesn't fit with the Christian concept that we live with in this country and many others. The Shia Muslims, this is becoming a problem, folks, and whether you like it or not, it is starting an infestation that other countries are saying enough is enough. You want to have your country do your thing, that's fine. But the reason we can't win the war, or at least stop the war going on in Iran, because they believe this is what they have to do to conquer the world. It's in their Quran. There are words in there. And the saddest thing is, and people have talked about this, you can marry someone 9 years old? Yeah, it happens. Take a look at it for yourself. If you don't believe me, like I said, if you don't believe me, go visit Dearborn. I can tell you other communities to go visit. Go visit New York and ask the New Yorkers what they think. This is the problem, folks. Is Lieutenant Governor Beckwith, is he correct? Well, that's going to be a battle. We're going to see where it goes. But overall, America, you better start taking heed, because this could be pretty bad, and we won't see it coming. And it could destroy this country as we know it. Something to think about. And now, you know. A few months back, someone in the Tucker administration decided that the homeless needed a bathroom, so they ordered one for $280,000. The problem is, it freezes in the winter. Bad plan? We'll talk about it coming up next. I want you to take a look at this little surprise. It's a $280,000 surprise. What is it? It's a bathroom. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a $280,000 bathroom. Does it have something newer, better, or even more improved than your bathroom in your home? Not really. It has a sink, and the sink has water in it, and it has a toilet, and the toilet flushes. That's what it has. And what it's designed for is people who are homeless in downtown Fort Wayne, because this is exactly where it was going to be placed. It's going to be over there by Cottage Flowers downtown. They dug out the area for it, but then they discovered something rather unusual, at least to them. At least I think it was unusual, or else somebody wasn't thinking real hard. See, it turns out that in Indiana, in the winter, it gets cold. And when it gets cold, things freeze. And if you've got a running water sink, what's going to happen to that running water sink in an open air bathroom? It's going to freeze. What's going to happen to the water in a toilet in an open air bathroom? It's going to freeze. Now, this unit would be perfect in Southern California for their homeless people there, but is it perfect for the city of Fort Wayne? Well, my feeling is probably not. I just don't know who decided to order this and who thought it was a wonderful idea to drop $280K. That's a pretty nice bathroom for $280,000. But what are they going to do with it now? What are they going to say? Hey, let's take it back to the manufacturer and see if we can get our money back? I don't see that happening. And since the manufacturer is probably not going to give it back, and since everything freezes in the winter in northeastern Indiana, what on earth do they plan to do with this outdoor porta-john? That's the biggest question. Is it going to serve the homeless community? I doubt it, and I can tell you this. The homeless community in other cities that have these, unfortunately, they get treated rudely. That's the best thing I can say without being too graphic. I don't want to do that. But I can tell you this. This was a blunder, and I don't know who was responsible for the blunder. I don't know if the mayor personally said, yeah, get it, or somebody else on her staff said, hey, that's a great idea for homeless people. Let's put in a portable toilet that'll freeze up in the winter. That's what we're dealing with. Now, is this worthy of people getting up and yelling and screaming and hollering? Well, you probably should. It's $280,000 of your money that was used to buy something that is, in fact, useless in Fort Wayne, Indiana during the winter. It'll work during the summer just dandy. But in the winter, you've got yourself an ice cube. A $280,000 ice cube. And now you know. Well, America, we just celebrated our 250th anniversary. Do you feel old? Do you feel different? Some of us are old enough to remember the 1776 200th anniversary and the differences that existed back then. That was the era of Jimmy Carter being president. Today, Donald Trump is the president. But what's happened in the world from then until now is far different. As a matter of fact, the FIFA World Cup is being held here in the United States for the first time in, well, heaven knows how long. And with it come hundreds of thousands of foreigners coming onto our shores. And you know what? They actually love it here. That's right. And many of them are saying, you know, that's not what we're told living in our country. We're told America is, well, frankly, a sewer, bad place. Everybody's killing everybody. It's a terrible situation. You can't go out. You're not safe for the women and children and whatever. They said, you know, it's different. That's not what we're seeing. That's not what we're experiencing, these people are saying. They're also learning some other things. One of the things they're learning is you get free refills in America. You don't get free refills in Europe. And the meal sizes, well, the meal sizes here in America are monstrous compared to what they get in Europe. Yeah, maybe that's why they're thinner. And so there's other things that they're discovering about America, one of which is ranch dressing. You see, they don't have ranch dressing over in Europe, and now people are trying to smuggle it back to Europe. And the airlines are saying, put it in your suitcases and not in your carry-on bags. You're going to create a giant problem. So here we are, America, 250 years old. Now, did everybody celebrate? Well, many places did. The fireworks, oh man, the DC fireworks with over 800,000 fireworks going off. That was without a doubt the most stunning thing I personally have ever seen, and I watched it on TV. Imagine what it was like if you were sitting there in D.C. And the naysayers and the trolls, they didn't like it. And some cities didn't have any celebration of 250. Philadelphia was one of those. That was the capital of our freedom back in 1776. No, they didn't want to have anything to do with that. So what we're dealing with today in America is 250 years. And if you remember correctly, well, that declaration was signed, the Declaration of Independence, and all of those people who signed that document, most were hunted down, imprisoned, killed, ended up in poverty, all because they said, we're done with this. And you know who's also celebrated? If you wanted to see a big celebration, you should have seen it in Japan. Now, here's a country we dropped 2 atomic bombs on. And yet their celebration in Tokyo was monstrous. I mean, the drones, the pictures, everything that was created, it's like nothing I've ever seen. You don't need to see fireworks in Japan. They got the drones. They're pretty doggone cool. But that's the way we are, America. The colors, the sounds, the styles, and yes, the fireworks. And the fireworks, well, you ever wonder what makes fireworks the colors they are? There's something to think about as we close out. Well, if you like the color blue, that comes from copper. If you're into that gold color, well, that's a little sodium. Barium, well, barium's going to give you a little green color. Magnesium, well, that's white. And strontium, well, strontium, sort of a pinkish red. But here's one to think about. This is a big one to think about because this one is yellow, red, white. It's not blue. This one comes from one element, and that element is uranium. And there's certain countries that have it and certain countries that want to use it to destroy other countries. You might want to think about that, folks. 250, we're still here. But some people are plotting to make sure we don't end up here very long. Just something to think about. And now you know. Well, if you thought the case involving Karmelo Anthony and his sentence of 35 years is going away, it hasn't. His new team of appeals lawyers are saying they want things started over again. We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, do you remember the case of Karmelo Anthony versus Austin Metcalf? The 2 high school students down in Texas at a track meet. Karmelo was accused of stabbing to death Austin Metcalf. The jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 35 years in prison, getting out after 17 years. Well, if you thought the case was over, it's not. 6 new appeals attorneys have all formed together to form a cadre of folks who are saying Karmelo is, well, he deserves a new trial. They didn't say he was innocent of what happened. They just said the trial was wrong, it was done wrong, and they want the trial to start over. And if they don't get what they want, they're going to appeal to a higher source, maybe even the U.S. Supreme Court. Who knows? But here's the particulars. They filed a 45-page appeal, and in it were 5 particular points. One of which they want the judge that served under the case itself thrown off the case. They don't want him taking any appeals or anything else. They want him gone because they feel that he was not honest, because he gave a TV interview after the trial was over saying he thought the jury reached the right verdict. And then they also said some other things. Well, Karmelo wasn't allowed to have a jury of his peers because 2 women, who happen to be African American, were excluded from the panel. Therefore, he didn't get a fair trial. Another point was that the courtroom was not, you didn't have cameras in the courtroom. It wasn't live streamed. That way, the public didn't get to see what was going on. That's another reason they want the trial to be done over again. And the 5th point they made was Karmelo only was given 10 minutes to decide if he was going to testify. They felt that wasn't incorrect and should not have been done that way. He should have been given more time. 5 different points from these 6 attorneys saying they want the trial done over again. And right now, is that a possibility? The answer of that is yes. And if their appeals are turned on, as I said, they will take it to the Texas Court of Appeals. Texas Court of Appeals, U.S. Court of Appeals, and ultimately, if they want to take it far enough, Karmelo Anthony's case could go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court to decide whether trials are fair or just if they don't have people of the same race on the group. It's something to think about, America, how our justice system works, if it's right, wrong, or needs to be changed. And now, you know. Well, if you'll allow me to make a short confession, I want to tell you something. I am a baby boomer. Now, baby boomers were born between the year 1946 and 1964. And frankly, that makes us old. But we may be old, but our aim is still pretty good. And I want to tell you about something that I have been around since I was a kid, and yet I've been told I'm not doing it right. And I'm going to tell you what that is. It has to do with Kraft dinner, Kraft Mac&Cheese, as they call it. I apparently have been making it wrong. Well, now I plan to make it right. Stick around and I'll show you how I'm going to do it. Well, back in the last century, when I was growing up as a kid, we loved the old Kraft macaroni and cheese. And the way we made it, pretty simple. Open up the box, you dumped it out, you put the macaroni into a pan, got a whole bunch of water, dumped it on top of it, stuck it on the stove, and boiled it till, frankly, it got soft. Once it got soft, you said, okay, and you got a colander out of your mom's kitchen, dumped the whole thing in the colander, drained it out, dumped it back into the pan, and then you got some of that cheese mixture in there, whatever it was. You dump that in, threw in some butter, whipped the whole thing up. If it got real thick, you add a little bit of milk into it, thinned it out, and that was how we made Kraft macaroni and cheese. Now me, I was a little bit different. I would add a little something else into my mac and cheese. I happen to like sweet peas. That's what I would do, and that's the way I made my mac and cheese. Well, according to Taste of Home magazine, I've been doing it wrong. I just didn't know it. And they're saying there's a better way to make mac and cheese. It's a lot less mess, and supposedly it tastes better and has a better consistency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make mac and cheese their way and see if it turns out better than the mac and cheese I used to make when I was a kid. If it's better, then I've been wrong for decades. We'll see what happens. Thanks to, Taste of Home magazine and, folks, Kraft Mac and Cheese. Let's get rocking. Now you're going to see how to make mac and cheese. Okay, so how did it turn out? Well, it's pretty thick. It's a consistency of regular, well, mac and cheese. And if that's what you like, guarantee you, that's what you get. Kraft Mac&Cheese. Well, there you have it, folks. The taste of home version of mac and cheese. Is it different than the old mac and cheese the way I made it when I was a kid? Yes, it is. But does it taste different? Well, mac and cheese is mac and cheese. In this case, since I add a little peas into it, it tastes just dandy. So if you want to try it a different way, well, now the different way is there for you to try, thanks to the folks over at Taste of Home and the good old Kraft Mac&Cheese. And now you know. Does the name Lorena Bobbitt strike a bell with you? If it does, guess what? It's happened again right here in our city. That's coming up next on The Pat White Show. Allow me to ask you a question out there. Does the name Lorena Bobbitt mean anything to you? Well, if it does, chances are you're probably cringing and you're probably a guy. Why? Because a story a number of years ago dealt with a lady by the name of Lorena Bobbitt. She was angry at her husband for something he had done, and in the middle of the night, she took a knife and cut off his manliness. It became a national story. It was from sea to shining sea. The trial, the retribution, everything that was going on involving a woman cutting off a man's genitals. Well, that was a long time ago, but I have a new story for you that's another Hall of Shame story, in my humble opinion, because it happened right here in our city, Fort Wayne, Indiana, where a 36-year-old gentleman by the name of Christopher Peden, he got himself in a bit of a pickle, shall we say. Turns out that back in May this occurred, Fort Wayne Fire Department was called to a garage fire. And in the garage fire, they discovered Mr. Peden, who was bleeding profusely. He said he had been stabbed. He was taken to a Fort Wayne hospital, and during an interview by police detectives, as they are wont to do, he said, "Well, I need to apologize. I went into my garage and I took a kitchen knife and cut off my own genitals." And obviously, that was not quite the story he said earlier, that he had been stabbed by somebody. Well, the investigators went to the garage, and sure enough, on the floor of the garage was a burnt former member of Mr. Peden's, body. Well, as a result, he said what he had done was he'd gone down, cut it off, and then went walking around until police found him. Well, now Mr. Peden has been charged with a crime of lying to police, which is pretty serious, setting fire, that makes him an arsonist, and he is due to go on trial. I don't know about you, but I think I would like to be on that jury, because I would like to hear the defense attorney's reason for Mr. Peden being considered to be not guilty. And frankly, I think the entire thing would be a hoot to watch. That's between you and me. But it is rather serious when someone does something like that, and you have to ask yourself, why? Well, most people would say he's either crazy or he's on drugs. And my guess, it's pretty much the latter than the former. The question is, will he be convicted? And if he is, where will he be put into prison? Can't hardly be a man, can he? Well, I guess he can because of DNA. But where should he be placed? Just something to ponder. 36-year-old man cutting off his genitalia, starting it on fire, and I don't know about you, but he and I are not on the same planet, thankfully, because I still have all my parts, and he doesn't. And now you know. Recently, the Supreme Court of the United States came down with a ruling that has many people, not very happy. It had to do with the birthright. And the birthright says that if you're born in the United States, you're automatically a citizen. Now, where did that law come from, or that right come from? It came from the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was started after the Civil War, in order to give the slaves the right to be citizens. That's what it was done for. The gentleman who drafted that particular amendment to the Constitution, it was intended strictly for people here in the United States, not people necessarily who are not from the United States. And the reason they did that was to ensure that, situations like an ambassador would come to this country and his wife would have children here, they would not be citizens. And that still exists today. So someone coming in from another country who's a, say, an ambassador, representative, their child is born in America, that child is not a U.S. citizen. That's in the 14th Amendment. Well, the court came down and said, hey, whatever Trump wants as far as the birthright goes, nope. The Constitution says if you're born here, you're a citizen. Well, here's where it's gone, folks. I want you to take a look at this. This is an advertisement from South Texas. Delivering love, it says, at the Mission Regional Medical Center. Birth packages in South Texas. You come across the border. This is on the Texas-Mexico border. They're advertising people to come north, have their children in the United States, and automatically become citizens. It's not about health care. You can argue that all you want. But Justice Alito was probably right when he said we're making a big mistake about people coming in, because there are birth packages going on not just in South Texas. They're going on in California. Chinese people are coming in from China, obviously, having the kids in the United States, immediately leaving, and the child is a U.S. citizen and can come back at any time. So, can Congress make a law to outlaw what's going on? Well, they can, but the Supreme Court will probably overrule it, saying the 14th Amendment. So the only option that's left America is a new amendment, an additional amendment to the Constitution that says that you got to be born here, got to be beholding to the country of the United States. And that's what needs to be clarified in the Constitution. Will it be? It all depends if a new constitutional amendment is in fact sponsored and passed by the House, the Senate, and most of the United States. Will it happen? Well, nobody really knows. But that's about the only way you're going to prevent what's going on. When this ad, birth packages, it's being done all around the United States because now it's considered legal. Bring in people from everywhere and have them become American citizens. That's where we've gone, folks. And that's not a good plan. It won't work out well in the long run, and everybody knows it. And now, unfortunately, something has to be done about it. And now you know. So how many of you love daylight saving time, setting your clocks forward, and then in the fall, setting your clocks back? You hate it. Government wants to do something about it. The question is, what do they want to do, and will you like it? I'll tell you more about that coming up next on The Pat White Show. 1. So are you one of those people that hate setting your clocks forward and backward twice a year? Spring ahead, fall back, that's what you're dealing with. Only good thing is you can change the batteries in your smoke detector because you got to change your clocks. Problem is, changing your clocks can be a giant pain for some folks. Some leave it the way it is and say, well, it works out eventually. Well, here's the deal. Apparently, the Congress of the United States is starting to pay attention because this week they will be voting on a bill to essentially get rid of daylight saving time and have everybody in America on one time. The question is, what time is it going to be? You either have daylight saving time or standard time. So, to help you understand what's going on, here is a little chart. Take a look at this chart. Now, this is for the Indianapolis area. That puts us in the Eastern time zone. So if you're in a different time zone, things are going to be different. And if you're way south in the time zone, it's going to be a little different also. Not much, but hourly time zone, well, it will change. So we are in the Eastern time zone here in the state of Indiana. And Indianapolis is the same time as our time in Fort Wayne. So we go with the current system we have based upon the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year. Longest June 21st, shortest December 21st. Take a look at our current time. Sun comes up at June 21st at 6:18 a.m. and it goes down at 9:16 p.m. Now during the winter, shortest day of the year, it comes up at 8:02 in the morning and it sets at 5:23. Now, if Congress decides to utilize daylight saving time, which is the bill that's being passed from the House to the Senate, here's what you're going to have with daylight saving time permanently. All right? During the summer, the sun will come up at 6:18 in the morning and set at 9:16 in the evening, which is the same time we have right now, daylight saving time. And 9:02 it comes up in the summer, or the winter rather, and sets at 6:23. But, and here's the but, if we revert to standard time in America, not daylight saving, sunrise in the morning in the summer would come up at 5:16 a.m. instead of 6:15, and it's set at 8:16. So the That light wouldn't be as long at night, and the golf course owners won't like that. In the winter, well, the sun will come up at 8:02 and set at 5:23. So on the daylight saving time, you're going to have the sun coming up at 9:02 in the morning. Now imagine that in the winter, sun coming up at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's what will happen with daylight saving time, and it'll set at 6:23. So, do you want to have daylight saving time or standard time? If you want daylight saving time, well, you're in luck because that's what Congress is working on. But it has to go to the Senate. And if you want to call your senator and say, no, I want to be on standard time, well, you're free to do that. Or, here like in the state of Indiana, we could say, well, if they pass daylight saving time, we'll just change our time zone from Eastern time zone, which is where we are. We'll change it to Standard Central Time. That means we'd be on the same time as Chicago. So, what are the odds? Well, right now, nobody knows. Will this bill pass? Probably, and the president will sign it because he said he would. But the bill he's going to sign is daylight saving time. If you don't want that, I suggest you call your senator, say, hey, I don't want daylight saving, I want standard time. Either way, America's about to come off of daylight saving time and not be changing clocks twice a year. But that means the problems with your smoke detector, the battery's going to go bad. You get some good, you get some bad. And that's what's going on in America. And now, you know.